In 1812, Napoleon Bonaparte, at the height of his power, led the Grande Armée into the vast expanse of Russia. This was a bold and ambitious move, driven by Napoleon's desire to expand his empire and assert his dominance over Europe. The Grande Armée, a formidable force of over 500,000 soldiers, was one of the most powerful military entities of its time. They marched with confidence, believing in the invincibility of their leader and the inevitability of their success. This fateful campaign, intended to bring Tsar Alexander I to heel, ended in disaster for the French emperor. Despite initial successes, the French forces were unprepared for the harsh realities of the Russian landscape and the tenacity of the Russian army. Tsar Alexander I, a shrewd and determined leader, employed strategies that would ultimately turn the tide against Napoleon. The Russian army, though initially retreating, used scorched earth tactics to deprive the French of resources, burning crops and villages as they withdrew. The unforgiving Russian winter, coupled with scorched earth tactics and relentless Russian resistance, decimated Napoleon's forces. The Grande Armée, once a symbol of strength and power, was reduced to a shadow of its former self. Soldiers faced starvation, frostbite, and constant attacks from Russian forces. The brutal winter conditions, with temperatures plummeting far below freezing, took a devastating toll on the troops. Many perished in the snow, unable to withstand the extreme cold and lack of supplies. The retreat from Moscow became a byword for military catastrophe, forever staining Napoleon's legacy. The once proud Grande Armée was now a broken and demoralized force, struggling to survive the long and arduous journey back to France. The retreat was marked by chaos and suffering, with soldiers abandoning their equipment and comrades in a desperate bid to escape the relentless Russian pursuit. Napoleon's reputation as an invincible military genius was shattered, and his dreams of European domination lay in ruins. But what if history had unfolded differently? What if the outcome of this monumental campaign had been reversed? Imagine a scenario where Napoleon's strategies had succeeded and the French forces had emerged victorious. The implications of such a victory would have been far-reaching, altering the course of history in ways we can only speculate. What if Napoleon had achieved his objective, the complete subjugation of Russia? The French Empire would have expanded its influence deep into the heart of Eastern Europe, establishing a new order under Napoleon's rule. The Russian Empire, once a formidable adversary, would have been brought to its knees, its territories and resources falling under French control. This victory would have solidified Napoleon's dominance and reshaped the geopolitical landscape of the 19th century. Let us delve into this alternate timeline, exploring the potential consequences of a French victory in the heart of Russia. How would the balance of power in Europe have shifted? What new alliances and rivalries would have emerged? The ripple effects of such a triumph would have been felt across the continent, influencing political, economic, and social developments for generations. The consequences of such an altered history would have been profound, redrawing the map of Europe and shaping the destiny of nations for generations to come. The French Empire, bolstered by its victory, might have pursued further conquests, challenging other European powers and expanding its reach. The cultural and social fabric of Europe would have been transformed, with French influence permeating every aspect of life. Join me as we explore this fascinating counterfactual scenario, examining the military, political, and social ramifications of a Napoleonic triumph over Russia. Through this journey, we will uncover the myriad ways in which a single event can alter the course of history, reminding us of the delicate balance that shapes our world. Imagine a different 1812. Napoleon, having secured his flanks and ensured adequate supplies, delivers a decisive blow against the Russian army at Smolensk. The Tsar's forces are routed and Moscow lies open before the Grande Armée. Alexander I, facing utter defeat, is forced to the negotiating table. A triumphant Napoleon dictates harsh terms. Russia is carved up, with vast territories ceded to France and its allies. Poland, a long-standing French client state, is reconstituted with its pre-partition borders, encompassing a significant portion of what was once the Russian Empire. The Tsar, stripped of his prestige and authority, becomes a puppet ruler, his every move dictated from Paris. The impact of such a victory would be seismic. France, already the dominant power in continental Europe, would now control resources and manpower previously unimaginable. The balance of power would shift irrevocably in Napoleon's favor, leaving him poised to reshape the political landscape of Europe at will. However, capturing Moscow does not guarantee control over the vast Russian expanse. The spirit of resistance deeply ingrained in the Russian soul would not be easily extinguished. As Napoleon settles into a captured Moscow, pockets of resistance emerge, led by disgruntled nobles and fueled by the anger of the dispossessed. The vast forests and steppes of Russia become a haven for guerrilla fighters who launch lightning raids against French outposts and supply lines. The French, accustomed to conventional warfare, find themselves bogged down in a brutal war of attrition, their ranks slowly whittled down by relentless ambushes and the ever-present threat of winter's icy grip. Napoleon, facing an enemy he cannot defeat through conventional means, is forced to adapt. He employs brutal counterinsurgency tactics, attempting to crush the rebellion through a combination of overwhelming force and the imposition of draconian laws. The conflict descends into a bloody quagmire, with atrocities committed by both sides. Section 4. A Tsar no more? Within the occupied territories, the seeds of discontent sown by Napoleon's victory begin to sprout. The Russian Empire, once a formidable force, now finds itself grappling with the consequences of its defeat. The territories under French control become hotbeds of unrest, as the local population struggles to adapt to the new regime. The imposition of French laws and customs disrupts the traditional way of life, creating a sense of alienation and frustration among the people. This period marks the beginning of a profound transformation in the Russian Empire as the old order starts to crumble under the weight of foreign domination. The imposition of French laws and customs, coupled with the humiliation of defeat, ignites a firestorm of resentment among the Russian aristocracy. The nobles, who once enjoyed unparalleled power and privilege, now find themselves at the mercy of foreign rulers. Their anger and frustration boil over, leading to heated debates and conflicts within their ranks. The aristocracy, feeling betrayed by their own Tsar, begins to question the very foundations of their society. This internal strife further weakens the Russian Empire, as the once unified nobility becomes divided and disillusioned. The Tsar, viewed by many as a traitor for surrendering to Napoleon, becomes a figurehead with little real power. His authority is undermined, and his ability to govern effectively is severely compromised. The people, disillusioned by his perceived weakness, lose faith in his leadership. The Tsar's once iron grip on the empire loosens, and he becomes a mere puppet in the hands of the French. This power vacuum creates an opportunity for new leaders and movements to emerge, further destabilizing the already fragile political landscape. Nationalist sentiment, dormant for centuries, begins to stir among the Russian populace. The common people, who have long been oppressed and marginalized, start to find their voice. Inspired by the ideals of freedom and self-determination, they begin to rally against the foreign occupiers. This burgeoning sense of nationalism unites the diverse and disparate groups within the empire, creating a powerful force for change. The peasants, who have suffered the most under both the Tsarist regime and the French occupation, become the backbone of this new movement. The French, initially welcomed as liberators from the Tsar's autocratic rule, are increasingly seen as foreign oppressors. Their presence, once a symbol of hope, becomes a source of resentment and anger. The harsh realities of occupation, including heavy taxation and forced conscription, alienate the local population. The French soldiers, who once marched triumphantly through the streets, now face growing hostility and resistance. The initial euphoria of liberation gives way to a deep-seated desire for independence and self-governance. The seeds of a powerful anti-French resistance movement are sown, fueled by a potent mix of nationalism, religious fervor, and a deep-seated resentment of foreign rule. This resistance is not just a military endeavor, but a cultural and spiritual awakening. The Russian people, drawing on their rich history and traditions, begin to organize and mobilize against the occupiers. Secret meetings, covert operations, and acts of defiance become commonplace as the resistance gains momentum. The movement, though fragmented and diverse, shares a common goal: to reclaim their homeland and restore their sovereignty. The Russian Orthodox Church, a powerful force in Russian society, becomes a focal point for resistance. The church, with its deep roots in the community, provides a sense of stability and continuity in these turbulent times. The clergy, respected and revered by the people, use their influence to rally support for the resistance. The church becomes a sanctuary for those seeking refuge from the chaos, and a center for organizing and planning resistance activities. Its role in the struggle against the French occupiers cannot be overstated. Priests, railing against the atheistic French and their puppet Tsar, call for a holy war to liberate Russia from the grip of the invaders. Their sermons, filled with fiery rhetoric and impassioned pleas, inspire the faithful to take up arms. The call for a holy war resonates deeply with the Russian people, who see their struggle as not just a political battle but a spiritual crusade. The Church's message of resistance and redemption galvanizes the population, turning the tide against the French occupiers. The Church's message resonates with the peasantry, providing a spiritual dimension to their struggle against French rule. The peasants, who have long been the backbone of Russian society, find new strength and purpose in their faith. The Church's call to arms transforms the resistance from a mere political movement into a holy crusade. The peasants, driven by a sense of divine mission, become the vanguard of the resistance. Their unwavering faith and determination inspire others to join the cause, creating a united front against the French occupiers. Section 5. A continent remade, Europe under the shadow of Napoleon. The year is 1807, and Europe is a continent transformed by the relentless ambition of one man, Napoleon Bonaparte. His military genius and strategic acumen have redrawn the map of Europe, creating an empire that stretches from the Atlantic Ocean to the Russian steppes. Meanwhile, in the rest of Europe, Napoleon's triumph sends shockwaves through the courts and chancelleries. Diplomats scramble to adjust to the new reality, where French influence is paramount. The old order is upended, and monarchs who once ruled with absolute authority now find themselves at the mercy of Napoleon's whims. With Russia vanquished, no power on the continent can challenge French hegemony. The Russian army, once a formidable force, lies in tatters, and Napoleon's troops march triumphantly through the heart of Europe. French military parades become a common sight in cities that were once hostile to the French cause. Prussia, Austria, and the other great powers are forced into a grudging acceptance of French dominance. Their armies, though still formidable, are no match for the battle-hardened veterans of Napoleon's campaigns. European leaders convene in secret meetings, plotting and scheming, but for now they must bow to the reality of French supremacy. The continental system, Napoleon's grand economic blockade against Great Britain, is now enforced with renewed vigour. Napoleon issues orders with the precision of a master tactician, aiming to strangle British trade and bring the island nation to its knees. Blockade ships patrol the seas, and British goods are seized with ruthless efficiency. British trade with Europe is strangled, dealing a severe blow to the British economy. Empty ports and declining industries paint a grim picture of a nation struggling under the weight of economic warfare. Merchants close their shops, and the once thriving British economy teeters on the brink of collapse. Napoleon, at the zenith of his power, seems poised to achieve his ultimate goal, the creation of a French-dominated Europe, free from British influence. Standing on a hill, he surveys the vast territories under his control, his mind constantly plotting the next move. Maps of Europe, dominated by French colours, adorn his war room as he plans his strategy. However, Napoleon's victory comes at a cost. The aftermath of battles leaves a trail of wounded soldiers and devastated landscapes. Napoleon, often seen in moments of deep contemplation, is acutely aware of the human toll his ambitions exact. The price of his conquests weighs heavily on his mind. The occupation of Russia, even a partially successful one, requires a massive commitment of manpower and resources. French soldiers endure the harsh Russian winter, their supply lines stretch thin across vast distances. The logistical challenges are immense, and the strain on the French military is palpable. The French army, stretched thin across a vast and hostile territory, is increasingly reliant on conscripts from conquered nations. These soldiers, drawn from diverse backgrounds, wear French uniforms but often lack the loyalty and cohesion of Napoleon's veteran troops. The challenges of maintaining discipline and morale are ever present. This breeds resentment and fuels the flames of resistance, both within France and across the conquered territories. Angry civilians and resistance fighters rise up against the French occupiers, leading to unrest and rebellion. The seeds of discontent are sown, threatening to undermine Napoleon's grand vision of a unified Europe under French rule.